and episode 11 of Tech It Up Talk. Tune into a discussion about the need for more education leaders to embrace technology as a part of their leadership practice with Dr. Travis Taylor and Mr. John Amenson.
You ready? Here we go.
The Tech It Up Talk podcast aspires to educate, inform, and inspire educators from teachers to school leaders on tips, tools, and resources to support the integration of technology into classroom instruction. You're listening to Tech It Up Talk with Dr. Mac, your host with the most passion for supporting educators from teachers to school leaders with the integration of technology into instruction. In today's show, we are discussing the need for more education leaders to embrace technology as a part of their leadership practice. Because we all know that leadership matters. And even more so due to our current time with COVID having a major impact in education. And definitely leadership helps support with building culture and capacity for effective use of technology in schools. So joining me today, I have two amazing guests who are also instructional technologists in the work with supporting schools and leaders with implementing and coaching the use of technology. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring them on and introduce you to Dr. Travis Taylor and Mr. John Amenson, who is not new to the show, has been a recurring guest, and I'm excited to have them both on today. So welcome, guys, to the show. I'm excited to have you here. It's a pleasure to have others in the field to help share their voice and support the move as we're helping to support other educators with the implementation of technology into instruction. And so if you guys can go ahead and introduce yourselves. So we'll start with you, Dr. Taylor. If you want to just share your background a little bit about what you do.
Okay, first I want to thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this podcast. I think you're doing a wonderful job. I think I've watched some of your other work, and I'm just really thankful to be a part of this. My name is Dr. Travis Taylor. I am an instructional technology specialist in the Little Rock School District in Little Rock, Arkansas. So my background and what I do is basically we do a lot of training, professional development and support for a lot of the classrooms and administrators with the current technologies, and we provide training and classes in those areas. My background really began in music. So it's one of the reasons why I kind of gravitated into educational technology. At the time, I'm multimedia, music recording, video, those types of things were the things that kind of drew me and pulled me over into the technology field. So again, I am just grateful to be here, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
All right. I'm glad to have you here. John?
I'm glad to be back. Thank you, Dr. Mack. I've been in instructional technology for the last 8 years, working with a one-to-one program. We started with our high schools, and this year we are trying to go one-to-one with all the schools because of the current situation that everybody's in. And so it's got a lot of experience and a lot of people that we're trying to help. And as usual, I'm always glad to be on your show and have great conversations with great guests.
Right. Well, as I stated before, the goal for this episode is to really discuss the importance of school leaders really embracing technology as a part of their leadership practice to support building culture and capacity for effective use of technology in schools, as well as provide some tips and best practices for using and implementing technology as a leader. And so what challenges are teachers currently faced with that you've seen?
I think the major challenge I think that teachers have dealt with is the fact of the change of the classroom structure. We've had the traditional classroom that we've been enjoying for decades now. And even though, we in the educational technology field have been pushing more student-centered and getting into more virtual and personalized learning, I don't think that the adoption pace was really as fast as I think it really should have been in a lot of cases. So this has caused, the teachers to really shift. And it was really a shift, an abrupt shift, actually. It's almost like an extreme. We're going like from one end of the spectrum all the way to the other. And yes. I think it has increased a lot of fear that the teachers already had. And it's not a lot of fear with technology. They fear failing with technology. And so it becomes an issue of of my competency as an educator, particularly when you look at a lot of the political issues and things around teaching and what's the demands of teaching and that sort of thing, and how that should be evaluated. So you just increase that potential for fear of failure with the technology. And also it increased a level of isolation for a lot of teachers, being disconnected and being virtual. Now, on the flip side of that, you had some school districts who were already planning, and we'll talk about this a little later, but you've had some who've been planning years out and going virtual and looking at the virtual option. So this was mainly just a pivot for them. And I think there are some districts and some schools that were in a better position to pivot. They may not have wanted to do it right now, but I think they were in a better position to pivot and move forward.
Yeah, I think it's been very interesting because our district had some experience with one technology that we've been doing over the years, like I said, through our high school system. But this forced immersion that's happened with all grade levels has kind of forced everybody to get in there. And you were talking about the fear of failing with technology. I think just the change overall gives teachers a little antsy feeling about what their responsibilities are going to be. And the fact that we went to kind of a virtual system when all this started and people were trying to get used from going to the traditional classroom to this virtual system. And in our particular district, we've actually got a concurrent system or a hybrid system where we have some students that have come back and teachers are doing the virtual teaching and teaching those kids in class at the same time. Yeah. And now this has just added yet another struggle on top of that. So there is a little bit of frustration out there, and the learning curve is coming on very quick and very rapid, like you're saying.
Right. Yes. I mean, those are great points, and definitely gives us some insight of what teachers are going through, which kind of brings back the focus on how we can continue to support our leaders to help build capacity within their campuses. Because my next question was like, well, who do you think are teachers' main support for even using technology just currently, even pre-COVID or now?
You can go ahead, John.
Well, I know for the schools where we were implementing things, we would have a campus instructional technologist. And for the schools that took advantage of this position, having somebody there 5 days a week that teachers could go to for support, come visit them during their PLCs, staff trainings, department trainings. If it's utilized correctly, it's been a big help in getting those people to kind of make that turn. Now, recently, there's usually people that have been named the instructional technologist that may not have been an instructional technologist who we're trying to give support from a district level, but they are also teachers or they're APs, and they have other positions. And usually when you try to do that and you don't have an exclusive person doing the instructional technology throughout the week, you're only getting as much as they can put into it. So it's better than nothing. I also think teachers are kind of reaching out everywhere. So the ones that are proactive, they're going online, they're following blogs, they're trying to get some additional training, talking to their peers, their friends, anything they can. For those teachers that are maybe not that proactive, I'm a little worried about that because they're waiting for some direction, and that gets back to the campus leadership, which I know we're going to talk a little bit more about in just a minute.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think if anything, the COVID situation has shined a light on the need for instructional technology. If you don't have a instructional technology department or you have those coaches, I think it really creates a need for administration to really look at that and states to look at what you have in those positions, because those are going to be your first line of people of support, because in most cases they should be or are going to be teachers who are teaching with technology and comfortable with technology and sharing the use of technology. So I believe it's the front line, those coaches in the classroom, but there also has to be a level of support at the administration level and it's when I say that, it has to be a supportive role of encouragement of something that's really proactive in the area of teaching, so that they feel that those above them are really behind them and not just alone. Because I think I talked about that. That brings up an adoption model, and one of those in that model, it talks about how how do I feel, or what are my perceptions of my bosses or my management wanting me to use the technology, and so that was like a measurement. And so those are the perceptions and things that teachers often have. And I think that, so they really need that support from in the classroom with the coaches and definitely from the administration.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's basically you're changing the culture of a campus. And before the pandemic, if you were introducing a one-to-one program of any sort, that's what we always would talk about is this is going to take many years to change the culture of this campus to want to do this on a regular basis. And to make that culture change, it has to come from the top down. The principal needs to be talking about it on a very regular basis, not only with the staff, but with their administration. They should try to model what they're talking about, and they can use these things with their administration when it comes to meeting notes or communication tools with the campus. They should be highlighting teachers that are advancing in this, and they should have a realistic assumption of what this is going to take. Not everybody is going to be a high flyer. If all of a sudden you were like, hey, this is the situation we're in, we brought you some devices, here are some tools, go. Everybody needs to go from the bottom to the top and be high flyers by the end of the year. That's not realistic.
Right.
But if the message is we are going to change and adapt and grow, and so what we want to do is wherever you are at the beginning of the year, if you can slowly grow as throughout the year and just show growth in a positive direction, that's what we want to see. You'll get a little bit this year, you'll do a little more the next year, and a little more the year after that. And I think if they take that approach, that is the best way to get that cultural change, kind of in the long run.
Since we're focusing on leaders now, what are some of their challenges? What are they challenged with in having to lead, I guess, during our current time and be that model for the teachers?
Well, I think just the very structure and the nature of the educational system is actually being altered in ways where there are some things, barriers and walls and things are being broken down, where there's this fluidity because of asynchronous. And then there's the fact that things can be synchronous. So all that is affecting the actual structure. And that's a problem because if you look, when you go through their educational periods, those areas where they were in school or getting licensure, we knew the education was going to look this way. We've always known education to look a certain way. So now it's looking totally different. We didn't go to school for this one. And so now the question becomes, how do we adapt? I think that one of the things that we're also trying to do is that, and in a lot of cases, they're looking for that indication to when we can go back to normal, or we're trying to prepare to when we can get back to normal. And I think 2019 normal is gone. We're never going to see 2019 normal again. Yes. It's going to be a whole different level of normal. And I think that's the things I think they're going to have to really start grappling with is that, stop trying to get back to 2019. And I think the technology gives us the ability to define what our future can be, and not allow the technology or the media companies or whoever to determine what that is. We have the ability and the power. The technology is malleable. It will mold to which way we want to shape it. And I think that's where, but that just takes a level of courage and in a sense, some kind of type of faith because you're dealing with ambiguity because you don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, this new normal that is going to be coming up. I think you're right. The old normal is gone, and we may get back to a new normal. Whereas we will have students back in classrooms and teachers back in classrooms. But what that classroom is going to look like, what the work production is going to look like, what students are going to be able to do outside of the school system will change. And all these things we're being forced to utilize now. People really do need to get comfortable with it because that's going to be part of their new normal. They will continue to meet with kids online. They will continue to do groups online. Kids are going to be working asynchronously. They're still going to have synchronous time. That's part of the new norm. So like you're saying, but if they think they're ever going to go back, they're not. And just like other industries have been affected by all this, like if you look at retail, this is a little off topic, but I'm going to pull it back around, Jocelyn. So give me a second. E-commerce was growing like at 1% a year. And in the 3 months during this period of time, it grew 10%. So it grew a decade's worth of growth inside of this year compared to what it had been doing. So it's been forced to be this new normal, right? And we've seen that on the retail stage. I think education is doing the same thing. It's being forced to get pushed into the future with at the rate of growth we were doing before, which probably wasn't that much. And if you're in instructional technology, you knew how hard it was just to get people to use some of these devices and tools. But over this year, we are really beginning to see how effective student responses and what students are able to adapt to. And those things that have a positive impact for student learning are going to be the things that stick. And just like it was before this, we've always had tools come and go. We're going to find tools that really work well for the new normal in the classroom. And that's where we're going to progress. And I think, educational technology as an industry is going to be extremely strong probably for the next decade. And I think, like we've been talking about, leadership needs to be aware of that is part of the new normal, and you need to kind of come on board or you're going to get left behind.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead.
I have one more thing I wanted to just add in with that. The other thing I think leaders are also having to grapple with is that the boundaries of the school district have just really disappeared. So that means that schools are using virtual learning now to increase in other words, they're not going to be, I know a school district right now, and there are several in Arkansas, they're not going to depend on the locale of the students there, only as far as for enrollment, that they are reaching outside their borders, outside of the county, across the state, and even probably across into other states where students are will be coming into your school that not necessarily in your local community, because they're not depending on that. And I think those are things that the leaders are now having to really grapple with, of how they can alter and change the educational system locally to address a more global school system. I think we're about to see an evolution, I think, in school boundaries and in school districting because of the virtual thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a
To
very
answer your question, Jocelyn, I think one of the main things that leadership has to deal with is everything they dealt with before in the past for regular schooling, and all this new stuff's been dumped on them, just like the teachers are kind of bombarded with all this. I think the leaders are too. And it's not really fair to ask them to just be able to get it in, a few months. This year is a learning year. And next year we're going to hope that they'll adopt some of these new philosophies to help, and if they really look at it, some of these things we're asking teachers to do to make their life a little bit easier working with the students, leadership can do it as well. And some of those things they've had problems with, they can use the same technology to also make their lives a little bit easier so they can adapt into this new way of leading.
I said this before, like for me, this is a positive thing of things that we wanted to see pre-COVID and supporting campuses. And so a lot of the things that they're having to learn to do were things that were in place by, a smaller population, probably within a campus, but definitely these are things that were happening prior to. Now they're being kind of forced to it. But I'm also seeing that, we have leaders who may have acknowledged that technology is important. However, they've probably assigned or delegated that task, but they're not necessarily embracing and leading with it as part of their culture to help support that culture, because a lot of them don't feel comfortable themselves. And so if you're uncomfortable, what do you think your teachers are experiencing, right? And so they're they have that level of uncomfortability because you're evaluating them, yet you're not comfortable with using the tools that you're expecting them to implement with fidelity into a classroom environment to make a positive impact in student learning. And which is why I think the show is relevant, so other leaders can hear that they have to embrace technology as a part of their leadership practice. And you don't have to be the expert, but you have to have some part of that, take ownership, so you can build a culture around your campus and your teachers to have that effect there, because we can't just depend on them. You're evaluating them based on their actions or whatever your goals are for your campus. So you need to be in sync with that, which is going to lead into my next question. So what are some things that leaders can do to embrace technology as a part of their leadership practice?
I think to adapt it into their everyday situations. If they're having meetings, introduce something. I mean, there should be some sort of support that their district would have. So if they wanted to learn how to use OneNote, for instance, they could do something like that. If they, whatever the tools are, if they wanted to learn to make a video and do some sort of flipped assignment with their agenda for their administrative meeting so they could see what they're going to do and then have more time to talk about it. I think they just need to start introducing some of that stuff with their administration so they get a good understanding of what these tools do and what they look like. So then when they are doing interactions with teachers, they can actually get a better understanding of what they're seeing that their teachers are doing with the students. And I think that's the best thing they can do.
Yeah, it is simply about that awareness of what are the technology tools that are out there and what do they do. And you don't have to be a guru, that sort of thing to be in a technology leader, but it is about having an awareness and understanding what the technology and what the purpose of it and how it fits within the system and how it relates to the system. There was a study when I was doing the dissertation. There was one of the studies that I saw that what I really liked was the one from 2012, where they looked at principals and leaders. They talked to leaders from large schools, small schools, East Coast, West Coast, public, private, charter. And one of the things that came about of the study was that technology has to be managed systemically. In other words, there are multiple parts of technology that have to be addressed, but they have to be addressed simultaneously, and that you can't address one without addressing the other. And so when you start looking at systems thinking and understanding those strategic thinking around systemic thinking, then you can kind of see how technology plays and how it relates. But you have to have a systemic view of your organization of what relates to what and how this affects this over here. And so then we can see how the technology fits in, not only just how it fits in, but then how do we move forward with the technology and what it's going to affect.
To kind of continue on with the research. And so there's research that shows that when leaders lead with technology, some attribute of technology into their practice, that it has a positive impact on teachers' technological literacy, which then begins to impact their technological effectiveness in the classroom or their ability to use technology in the classroom, because their leaders are using it with some capacity to help kind of build that culture around that. And so in one of the studies I read, it was talking about 5 dimensions of technology or 5 dimensions of attributes that leaders can embrace or have as a part of their leadership to kind of support that model. And so what we can do now, I'll just share, you can maybe just give me some tips. You guys kind of touched on some of this already, but one of the very first dimensions was on planning and having a vision and management. And so what advice would you give other leaders in regards to planning, vision, and management?
Well, the one question I would always ask a leader is, who are you listening to? Who are you? So what we're talking about is that professional learning network and building that. Who are you listening to as far as in the media, social media? Who are you following, or are you even following people on social media? I have a throwback to old technology. I still use RSS feeds, because blogs generate RSS feed, podcasts generate RSS feed, and I have a podcast RSS reader that and every morning I'm getting up and I'm going through the RSS feeds to see what the industry is doing, what the trends are. And so I think leaders should build that professional learning network just by doing that. And also, I would really strongly suggest that they get involved with COSN, with COSN.org, because COSN has really designed for and has research and support for technology leadership with the CETL certification that they've come up with, and they do research and they give you the trends of what's happening in education technology around leadership. I would definitely start with COSN, with COSN.org is a great place for leaders.
Yeah, no, I agree. They should network out. They should educate themselves, find some avenues. Like you said, even if it's just a blog, if you're going to listen to a podcast, if you're going to join an association, if you really want to be a leader in the educational industry, you're going to know just like teachers are. And that's the way we do it, so you can stay up to date, because things do move fast, things do change. And if you kind of want to know where the trends are going, that's kind of where you need to be. The other thing I would say is to have a goal. What is your end result that you're trying to get? Have that mapped out, and then kind of reverse plan that out to get to that point. And if that's a shared view within your district and you're just a part of that, or if you're doing this kind of solo on your campus and maybe your district doesn't quite have the plan, you need to have that down on what you're going to do and set up that goal and let your teachers know what that goal is. because that's the one thing I have found, that if they know what that goal is, it is much easier to get them to adapt and change and learn and participate into this thing. If they don't know what that goal is, it gets pretty difficult.
Yeah. And like you said, articulation. Like you said, that what they know what they go, and that comes from being able to articulate that vision. And I think that's one of the things I really look for, and look for in leadership, or when I'm like, particularly if I'm in meetings and networking events. I zero in on these leaders that can go in and just really articulate what that vision is down. They can be very discriminate at how they're going to do it and what they're going to do. Those are the things I've always been impressed by a lot of leaders.
And I would add too, when they're articulating that vision, to take that as an opportunity for them to model them using it as a practice. And you know, sometimes we say you have to just show them the next tool. You don't have to always just show them the tool. Just use a tool. Use it in the manner in which you would expect your teachers to do. If you're checking for understanding and you want to check for understanding with your teacher audience, then leverage some component of a resource that you may want them to integrate into your building as a part of your meetings when you're having your staff development meetings, or just your campus meetings, or whatever it is, or your professional developments that you have assigned for your campus. Which brings me to the next dimension, is talking about leaders who embrace or think through staff development and training. And so do they have like purposeful PDs assigned, or provide resources for teachers? So do you guys have any advice for leaders centered around staff development and training?
Practice. If you want to do it, practice it, and the more you do it, the easier it gets. That's with almost all these tools and tries, when these principals are trying to do these things. You don't want it to be too difficult where you try it and you get frustrated, because that's what we see with some of the teachers, right? So just do it in easy, small steps. Don't try to do something big right away. Just do something small, try it out. If it works on a regular basis, just incorporate it in as part of the regular. And then when you want to add something in or expand it, then do it from there. But don't try to just say, we are going to transform the way we do everything starting now, because then you'll just get frustrated.
Well, that's how we always do, come from ISTE. That's the first thing you do. You leave ISTE, you leave that final keynote. You would always come back and this is what we're going to do in the district. We're going to change the district, and we're going to do this, because you'll find that one buzzword, that one catchphrase you see at ISTE, and that's what you're going to go back to the district and do. But with leaders, one of the things is, particularly with PD, is I'm finding, for me, it is doing the training myself. It's when I train, there's so much that I learn when I train, or when I'm teaching. If there's nothing more than how to deliver it better. But as I'm reading the audience and I'm reading those who are participating, a lot of times from their questions and feedback, I can see areas where they may not understand something, where I need to come in and redesign how I present something to provide more support of understanding, or scaffolding, as it would, some of the learning. And I think that leaders, you know what, I know of 2 district superintendents right now who do technology professional development themselves for their staff. They did their own. And we're talking with iPads, and we're not talking about with just show me a slide here. We're talking down and dirty in the nitty gritty professional development. And this goes back to what you were saying about the level of influence that leaders have. They were doing those changes. They were demonstrating the technology, and they were pushing their staff. And you just had this level of staff, but that was really performing at this crazy rate, because the leader was pushing it. The leader was doing, and he wasn't leading. This wasn't for the teacher. This is what he was pushing to the administration staff and everybody in middle level administration. So that the influence that leaders have, particularly with technology, adoption is very powerful, and it flows downstream. I mean, it starts at the top, and how well that you want technology to be adopted and implemented in your district, depending on how well you are willing to go to make that happen.
Right. And I'm glad you said that, because they have to also have a level of vulnerability to be okay with. And we know that a lot of leaders, they feel that they have to have this presence of, I got it together, for those who may work for them, and they don't want to mess up or look bad because they're the leader in the campus. But sometimes that vulnerability of you being able to show that, hey, I may not be the expert at this, but we're going to get this together. We're going to learn together and develop together, especially now, because at the end of the day, we're all people, and we all wake up and say good morning to, and we have loved ones, and we want to be valued, and we're not perfect all the time. And so it's okay to show some of your imperfections if technology is not your strength. And even if you're relying on a source at your campus to help support you in that process, if you have a campus instructional technologist, that's great. Don't just solely rely on them to do all the work, and you just kind of assign that task over there to them, and you just focus on other priorities, because then you don't create that culture. That culture has been created through the person who's not evaluating the staff. And so if you're going to be giving instructional advice and have expectations of your teachers, then you need to also come in and embrace. And if you're not uncomfortable with it, get in line. Everyone is at this point. Look, we use technology all the time, and things are always happening. Tech happens, and it's just okay for you to identify that as the leader. It makes your teachers more comfortable when they're having those challenges in the classroom. What would you guys like to see leaders doing to embrace technology as a part of leadership?
Go on with what we've been talking about, trying it. Just give it a shot. Go out there, give it a shot. Don't expect to be the best. You truthfully, and if your end goal is to help the students, you don't want to be the best. You really want that to float down to your teachers or your instructional technologists or something. But give it a try and really just have the message there. Be on board with the idea that this is our new norm, and the way we are going to be successful in this new environment, whatever it ends up settling down or being, is by participating and growing and making this part of our everyday lives. As long as that message is always coming out, I line it back to what successful students seem to have, which is the support system of people always asking about education with them. How are things going? How are you doing? Tell me what you did today. As long as education is always part of the conversation, that's going to help. And that's what we're trying to get in most of these kids' lives. Leaders need to be doing the same thing with their staff and administration on technology. Talk about it, getting it down to that level, because that's where it's going to go. As you say, start from the top and trickle down. We eventually want to see the same thing. We want to see student success. And if this can help our students succeed, that's what we want to see.
Right.
I think that it's part of what Michael Fullen calls the unheroic side of leadership. And that is that point. We always, everybody likes to be up front when everything is going great. We love Superman, but there's sometimes you have to be Clark Kent. And it's that moment when you're Clark Kent, it's when you're having to learn, and when you have to sitting down and trying to develop a vision of what is it you want the technology to do? What do you want it to look like in the district? And when we finish doing this, what should it look like in the hands of our students, and what should the outcomes be? That whole visioning process. And for some leaders, from what we're talking about here, they have to get into understanding enough of technology to know what to develop in a vision. Because we're saying develop a vision, but too many, and that's the thing I think we really want to get across, is that in order to develop that vision and to articulate it, you have to have some involvement with the technology. You have to have some part of your life, and it should be integrated at some point. Again, you don't have to be the wizard or the guru or the sage on the stage, but you have to be willing, like you said, that vulnerability to want to learn it enough to, okay, if I'm leading, I need to know, this is what I need to know in order to create this vision. And you don't have to do all the work. That's when you have that collaborative piece with the CTOs and the technology specialists and CTE and all of the other different aspects of the administration and the system that will come together and help develop to see what is that going to look like. All the stakeholders, parents, community leaders. It's a group effort, but we must at some point have a vision of where, because when you have that vision, then you're not bothered by all of the flashy objects. Okay, this is going over here. Well, that's great, but our vision is this. And this is where we're focusing our vision on. Yeah, I see all that, but when we look at it now, I don't think that really fits to what our vision. And that keeps you on point, and it keeps you from, because you can waste a lot of money with technology.
Yes.
You can waste a lot of money with technology.
I heard this is an awesome tool. We are going to use it this year, but don't really think through the implications of what it looks like, how it's going to affect, what support is going to be needed, and how to effectively use it. So, yeah, I've seen that a lot in the past from leaders who would just hear of this awesome tool that should work, yet they haven't tested it out themselves. They just heard what it could do, or maybe saw an example of what it could do and thought that was the best thing that that their staff has to have. So let's spend this money and get everyone on board, but yet it doesn't get adopted.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I want to go back on that Dr. Taylor was talking about was the stakeholders. And we've been talking about the school entity itself and the district, but the community and parents are just as much part of that. And this cultural change includes them. And the leader that is going to help them is that principal of that school. That's the message that's going to go out. Here's our goal. Here's what we're going to be doing with technology. Here's what school is going to look like for your students. And the community and the parents are as much a part of that, making it successful as anybody.
If you don't have a vision for the technology in your district, your vendors will gladly give you one.
Yes, I like that.
they have one. They have one all lined out for you. If you don't have a vision of what you want the technology, trust me, there are several vendors that they have them. They probably have them in their briefcase when they come to visit you.
Yeah, but I was about to add on to what John was saying about, getting out to the community. This is another way that they can embrace technology. Is like, okay, let's leverage using different video conferencing tools to have community meetings. Or, I just did a session earlier this week on leadership matters and innovative ways you can embrace technology as your leadership practice, and just kind of sharing some different things that they could do. And they can do simple things like create a playlist for PD resources. Or even for parents. Like, there's so many different little things that you can do to kind of embrace that culture, to kind of help support that and support your outside community as well as your in-house community, and continue to develop and kind of lead in small ways. Like, your professional development meetings doesn't have to be full of announcements. Screencast what you want them to know, and that long 20-minute spiel that you were going to give to take up time that no one really wanted to listen to at that time because they're tired, they've been working all day, and they're ready to go home. And so it's kind of going in one ear and out the other. You can turn that into a 1-minute podcast and get all those announcements out, or have them watch it before they come to the meetings. They have questions, and you can still hold them accountable for the information, but you don't have to waste so much time in those ways. You can maximize your time. It's like teachers can maximize their time with the instructional process and leverage technology to do that. And so I think those are some different ways that they can also embrace technology as being more efficient with their staff.
Mm-hmm. And we also saw an evolution from this parent involvement kind of evolved with this, because all of a sudden the parents became the new aides from the classroom.
Yes.
They were having to help, get the students on point. They were, because one of the things that we did was we had to, go through, and we were using our LMS, and we of course had to help the parents navigate the LMS. And we focused on when we did the lessons and how we presented things within the LMS. We also had to consider that we have parents out here who are helping the students. We have grandparents out here who are helping the students,
yes.
And that we must then adapt how we do this so that it's available for everyone, and it's feasible for everyone to get to the content. And so that has changed. And I think the districts who really invested and pulled the parents, you had an opportunity to pull the parents closer to the district with this, because of the need, and because you all really depended upon each other, is that we had ability to really bring the parents closer to the schooling process and bring them into the classroom at a much deeper level. And I think that's what's going to keep those parents around. When I talked about parents leaving districts and can easily go virtually, but those types of things of pulling your parents in, what's going to keep them.
Well, let's go ahead and move to our next segment of our show, which is I like to call Get Your Tech Together. And so in this segment of the show, I want you guys just to share some tech tools you feel that leaders should probably have in their digital toolbox that can help support them in embracing technology as a part of their leadership.
Well, one of the ones that I always throw out, and I'm going to jump in here, Dr. Taylor.
Go ahead.
I think screencasting is, as much as it's an important tool for teachers, I think it's important for leadership too. Just like Dr. Mack was talking about, being able to take all those big messages and stuff and just put it in a 1-minute video, send that to the staff or the leadership to look at, and then come back. I think getting them to use those tools, because for those of us that are instructional technologists, we know they're actually not that hard. Once you get, a little bit of practice with it, become very easy. And that's one of the tools that can save you time. right? Save that time, which is what everybody needs more of, including leadership. So I think anyone with Screencast-O-Matics, Looms, Screencastify, whichever one they want to do, just getting comfortable with one of those just to make your life easier and being able to, again, model the things that you want to do. You're using the technology in front of people and they see it. So that message is trickling down that, oh, this is part of our everyday life now. So Screen is my thing.
Let's see. I'm kind of go back to a throwback. Of course, I talked earlier about the RSS feeds. Get you a reader and begin to collect that information to know who's saying what. Now, one of the tools I really like though, that for me is it's Pocket, and it's I think it's getpocket.com. I think, and it's just it allows you to. It allows you to, let's say you're on a website or you see an article that you like, but you don't have time to read it, then you can just install the plugin in your browser. You can grab it and throw it in your pocket, and so you can read it later. And it's just a great way to curate and grab things on the go. Because if you're a leader, you see, if it's a PDF online, if it's a speech or something, a YouTube, you can just grab it, tag it. In other words, put a tag on it and throw it in your pocket so you can go back and read it and find it later.
Yeah, there's a lot of tools like that. You can do Google Keep. To do that, they have, if they start leveraging Chrome extensions to be more efficient, I think that is an excellent way for them to do little small things to embrace technology as part of their leadership. And so,
Dr. Taylor, we're going to have to get together. I'm a big Pocket user, so we can. I save like 10 things a day. I can't even read everything and save it.
Yeah, right. So just grab and stuff. Like I said, so when I'm going through those RSS feeds, hey, I'll throw in the pocket.
Yeah, it's one of those tools that inside of education or outside education. If you show somebody who's a professional in anything, they love it. Once they see it, oh my God, I have to have that.
Yeah.
Talked about screencasting with you with Loom, Screencast-O-Matic, and Screencastify. Dr. Taylor is suggesting to have RSS feeds or get an extension, Get Pocket, to get resources to help support you and going back to those resources at a later time when you don't have time. So what else are there tools that you would like to share?
I like the tools that allow you to kind of take over people's screens. So there's Nearpod was one we first started using, but then we started using Pear Deck this year. And both of these tools allow you to kind of control what people are watching if you're doing presentations and things like that. But it also allows for a lot of feedback. It's super useful in the classroom. And I think it's one of those tools for teachers that is invaluable, but I'd love to see administrators utilize it with their admin team, or the leadership use it with the admin team, then the admin team can use it with their teachers. And so it's one of those tools that can kind of float down because it works on all those levels. So I think introducing yourself to one of those two, just so you can get the interaction and feedback from your participants, you'll kind of see the quick value of it. So I like those.
If you're a Microsoft district, and if you're based in Microsoft, one of the things, there are a lot of just basic tools within just Office itself that leaders can use. Particularly, one thing that Microsoft's AI is very good at is their translator. So, and their translator tool is built into all their products. It's built into Word. It's into Outlook. So if you get an email, let's say from somebody from some of the Hispanic community, and it's in Spanish, you can translate it right there inside the email. You can also write your response and translate it back and send it back. And what I found, I use it all the time because when we're sending out documents and things to parents, and I need to translate it, I don't go to the translators that we have in the district. I use my Microsoft tool and then send them and let them proof it to see. And they always come back with, oh, there's only like one or two things we have to change on here, because that AI that's built into that structure of Microsoft is really very good in translating. Now, this is something that you might want your CTOs, to have your tech staff to help you with. But there is a feature within PowerPoint that will allow you to present, and it does subtitles in a whole nother language. And you can actually use a QR code and choose the language. So you can have multiple languages hearing or seeing seeing the presentation in their own language as you just present in English. So they're just some those communication tools, really to talk with and bring in and draw in your stakeholders.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. They've done such a great job with all these translation tools. We use those as well, but also Immersive Reader, which is now being embedded in a whole bunch of third-party programs, just from the aspect of communicating with the parents and the community. They can choose whichever language they want. They can have it read to them. If they're struggling readers, they can utilize that to have it read to them and change the font size and stuff like that. So I think Immersive Reader's one of those tools that if your district has it, like you said, if you're a Office 365 district, it's embedded in almost everything. You should really utilize it. Show your students that could use the benefit from it, how to do it. So if they do need it, they have it. And the same thing with parents. Communicating with them, do some strict lessons, show the community what they can do with it. So I agree with you. I think the translation tools are phenomenal, especially they've come so far so fast.
Yes. Yeah, well, I like all the things that you guys are sharing. So we talked about screencasting, leaders leveraging that to maximize their time and efficiency, whether it was with their community or with their teachers, getting more knowledge using RSS feeds and Get Pocket on resources that they may find online, don't have time to read, but can build a repository and come back to. And, leveraging some of the tools that they already have access to and using them in different ways outside of just their presentation tools like in PowerPoint and other Microsoft products. And so I agree. So let's go ahead and move to our last segment of the show, which I like to call the Tech Smackdown. And in the Tech Smackdown, audience will get to choose who they thought have the best tips. So you guys are going to share 3 tips that we can end the show with for administrators. And we're going to go tip for tip. And so I know John has been on the show before, and we've done paper, rock, scissors on who goes first.
I'm actually going to let Dr. Taylor go ahead and go first.
I'm going to nominate him to go first. And so you guys can share a tip, and then we'll go back and forth until we get to 3. So Dr. Taylor, you're up.
Well, I'll kind of go back to one tip that I had mentioned earlier. The first place I would start is get you a support system by going over to COSN, COSN.org. That's the first place to go. If they have tons of there's stuff that's research-based, but there's just things and tools and guides, things to look out for, from cybersecurity to data privacy to stakeholders. There's a rich wealth of things. So I would definitely start there.
Yeah, I think my main one would be to let your staff, your administration staff, know that your plan is just for growth. Again, don't push them too hard, too fast. Let them know that you just want to see a constant little steps to get to the end of the race, right? And so and embrace that, So if you tell them that, then you should showcase it. If you see somebody who's doing exactly what you asked, let everybody know, celebrate that. So people know that it's on the radar, right? Because there's so many things that are happening. I think you letting them know that you just want to see growth and you don't expect a very novice instructors, maybe not that comfortable yet, to become this high flyer. You just want to see the baby steps going and reward them for it.
There is no such thing as it. So there's not that one application that you're going to use that's going to do everything. There's not this one vendor. And even if you get and you start developing a system of technology and you start getting comfortable with it, please do not try to stay there. You have got to know that is only for a moment or a season, and that you should be asking the question, what does the next level look like?
I think the next one would be incorporating something that you want to model. Go find something. Like you're saying, it's not the it thing, it's just the thing for right now. Give it a shot and let people know that you're also participating in the game.
And you be open to ambiguity. In other words, we're moving forward, but we don't know how everything may look as we go. We don't know, because you're in an area like COVID showed us that we don't have a blueprint for this. So we're actually being forced to look at ambiguity now, and so we're going to have to get comfortable with that. And that I don't have to know all the answers right now, right. But that's where that vision comes in. But I have a vision. But I know I want to go in this direction. I may not know exactly what it's going to look like when I get there, but I have a vision of what I think it can be.
That's a good one. All right, my last one, number 3. Be comfortable with the idea of changing what your administration is going to look like on a campus. It's specifically one of the positions that is not a regular position, but I think should be, as much as an assistant principal, is a campus instructional technologist. That you should look at that as becoming one of the strongest members of your team, because you will get more bang for your buck from having that position on your campus than almost anything else. This year especially shows that, but what we were just talking about, the new normal, this is part of the new normal. And so to have that person support your teachers and staff on a regular basis, I think is the most valuable thing you could do. So if you're not comfortable with having a campus instructional technologist, please try to get comfortable with that idea. It is well worth having it.
Right. Well, I want to thank you guys for joining me today, and I hope I can have you back on again. Dr. Taylor, John's been a regular. I hope we can see you again for.
I'll be back, I promise.
And I appreciate all the love here. And so before we end, if you can just share with the listeners how they can be a part of your network and continue to learn and grow. We can all be a part of the same personal learning network.
But you can find me.
Twitter, I am.
Go ahead, John.
You're there.
No, it's me. All right. You can follow me just at my name, at John Amenson. That's my Twitter handle. And you can follow the things I follow, chat with me, and let's just grow in this industry together. I think finding those, like Dr. Taylor was saying, finding that group of people that share kind of your vision or your passion for this industry, besides learning new things, it actually gives you ideas and gets you excited about this industry, and it kind of keeps you going. This year, more than anything, is showing we need that sometimes, and these little things can help. So you can follow me at John Amenson on Twitter.
You can follow me at it's at Scholarly Tech. So that's my Twitter handle. You should see there. I'm right now just doing. I've always liked Twitter. Twitter has just been one of those places I've been at, because in Twitter you can always reach out and connect with people who you've never really talked to. I've had conversations with artists and stars and that sort of thing. Actually, that's how I got to know Mario Armstrong. We convinced him to come to ISTE and be a part of ISTE one year. So at Scholarly Tech is my Twitter handle.
Yeah, I'm already following you. I got you this morning.
And see, look, we're making connections here on the Take It Up Talk podcast. So it was an honor to have you guys on the show. Please follow Dr. Taylor and Mr. John Amenson and become part of their network. You also follow the show at Take It Up Talk. And you can follow me at Dr. J.E. McDonald. And so I just want to thank you all for joining us today. And I hope we were able to make a positive impact, give you some things to think about and reflect on as we're all looking for the common goal of supporting our students. And so I want to leave you with, tech it may not always be easy, but it sure is fun.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Tech It Up Talk podcast with Dr. Mac, your host with the most passion for supporting educators on using and implementing technology. Be sure to connect with me on the Tech It Up Talk Facebook page and Twitter and Instagram at Tech It Up Talk or at Dr. J.E. McDonald. Now, I know teching may not always be easy, but it sure is fun.